Good morning, everyone. We'll give folks a few minutes to join and then we'll start the webinar. Good morning, everyone. In the interest of time and everyone's schedule, we'll start. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning for the March Agency Technical Administrator meeting. Just as a check, can everyone see my screen and hear me okay? Thank you. So welcome again. Just a couple of housekeeping items. In terms of how the webinar is set up, non-presenters are muted. There is a questions capability in GoToWebinar to ask questions. We'll answer as many in real time as possible. Those questions should be available on the left side. The questions area should be available on the left side controls. You can click the arrow to expand, type in your question in the text area and click send. And we'll respond again to as many of those as we can in real time. This webinar is not intended to be a working session to address specific client data situations. Please contact the help desk for any of those kinds of issues. And in GoToWebinar, we automatically record each one of these sessions and post it to the help desk under the ATA meetings. We'll send a link out along with a copy of the slides in a PDF form. So those things will be sent as soon as the recording has been compiled after the end of the meeting. So the agenda for today will be providing some reporting updates from HUD and WellSky, an update on the point in time count and the housing inventory count. Quick item about doing a review of project data and doing some updates there. Review of the data quality process for Q4 2023. An update on the coordinate entry assessment changes. An update on the All Inside initiative. Some discussion on the HUD Data Accuracy Completeness Evaluation Tool, EVA, that we introduced in January. Quick update on agency participation agreements, and then time set aside for any questions. So WellSky recently updated Community Services HMIS to include the following reports. The coordinate entry APR was updated. That concludes the changes. They continue to make some small updates for the point in time and housing inventory counts. But for the most part, the reporting for the HUD standard reports and the changes required for the 2024 data standards has been completed. The housing inventory count and the point in time count reporting is still in process. And as a heads up to everyone, ESG CV quarterly reports are due on April 30th. The YHDP quarterly report is due on April 30th. Special NOFO quarterly reporting is due on April 30th. And just about a week and a half ago, we filed the system performance measure report for the community with HUD. So this is a busy time starting in November with a lot of HUD standard reporting for the end of the fiscal year, and the HIC and PIT filing in April should bring that to a close. Any question on any of the reporting? Sandra has a question, reports that all Chicago does. So the HIC and PIT we do in coordination with DFSS and our programs team. The coordinate entry APR, the coordinate entry group in all Chicago does that reporting. The SPM, LSA, those things we do. The other things on the list in terms of the quarterly reports, it depends on the group that's doing it, but some of those may be things that individual agencies need to file. Other questions? So the point in time count and housing inventory counts. Thank you to everyone for participating in the point in time count in January and completing the housing inventory count surveys. It's really important that we gather all of that data as accurately as possible. So we appreciate everyone helping out with giving us the most current data in those areas. So currently all the projects excluding rapid rehousing had their inventories updated based on those surveys. All Chicago DFS is currently working to review and prepare that data to be submitted to HUD. Final reports need to be submitted by April 30th via HDX. If you have any questions regarding your project's current inventory, please reach out to us at the help desk. And also there's a link here to do the unit list update form for any inventory changes. Please work all of those inventory changes through us. We want to make sure that there aren't any changes being made to the system while we're in the process of doing the housing inventory count. So we can provide consistent and accurate information to HUD. One of the things to note here is that the housing inventory count is now using the same reporting extract that the longitudinal system analysis does. Data consistency and using HMIS data as much as possible for the HIC is a big priority for HUD this year. Where in the past it was basically done largely off system. So that's a big change. So again, making sure the data in the HMIS is accurate is a critical item for all this reporting now. Questions on the PIT or the HIC? So under project data review and updates, just a notation that in doing the LSA, the longitudinal system assessment, and the HIC reporting, along with some other internal COC reports, we've identified that there's some issues with the setup data for some projects, including things like the program type code, the DFSS project type, some inventory, the operational status, and funding sources. So we have a group internally that's going through all of the project data and verifying it to make sure that we have both the most recent and accurate data. So we may be contacting you as part of this process to verify data about your projects as part of this review. So kind of a heads up about that. We want to make sure that again, the project data is as accurate as possible in the HMIS for lots of reasons, including reporting. So if there are changes to your projects on an ongoing basis, things like funding sources or inventory or things like that, please keep us up to date on that so we can make sure that we're reflecting that accurately in the project setup data in the system. Questions about that? So the data quality update, the data quality process for the fourth quarter of 2023 from October 1st to December 31st was conducted at the end of February. 271 projects were included in the reporting. Thank you to everyone for participating. The numbers keep increasing in terms of the number of projects we're getting data on, so that's a very good thing. And we encourage each agency to review the reports to identify areas for improvement and let us know how we can assist in that. Some observations and a couple of questions. We do still have some issues with reports being sent in with no project identifiers in the content of the report, or the reports are actually blank, or they're submitted for multiple projects. And the way the system is set up, each project needs to be run as a separate report. Some reports we get are not actually the correct report that are attached to the emails that we receive. And some agencies are struggling to meet the deadline. So a couple of questions: are there clarifications needed in the data quality instructions, and does the time schedule need to be lengthened to allow more time for folks to make whatever corrections or things like that? We can send out a survey for this if necessary, if there are other things about the process that we can improve. We want to do that to make it more streamlined and make sure that it's understandable. Sandra has a question. Second round of results showed corrections with timeliness, but showed up out of compliance on spreadsheet number 156 submitted to help desk ticket. So we'll review that, Sandra, and follow up with you on that. Dana has a question. Do you follow up with agencies that submit incorrect reports? Yes. And Bridget has a question. Does the HMIS committee need to make a decision to change the timeliness standards? Almost no agency currently can meet them. They are not a HUD standard. And Matthew Giacarino says, can the timeliness ever be improved? So on the HMIS committee question, yes, we cannot. It's a community decision, not something that that we as the HMIS lead can just go in and change. And we are raising the issue of how to do data quality with the HMIS committee. I know that, in the HMIS lead webinar in February, the HUD TA folks actually went through data quality, how to construct a data quality program. One of the 3 pieces of it was actually timeliness. They don't provide any standards for it. It's completely a community decision on how this stuff is done, but they do think it's important to include timeliness as a metric. To Matthew's question about can the timeliness be improved? Once the data is entered, if an entry does not meet the timeliness standard, there's no way to go in and redo that entry to make it meet the timeliness standard. So if that's what your question is, Matthew, know that there's no effect you can have on it from a data entry perspective after the fact. Dana has a question, a comment that one thing would help is the automatic responses setup. Yes, I agree, and so that's one thing we're working on for the next time is to make sure that we have a macro that will automatically respond to folks when the reports are sent in and received. So Juanita McWilliams has come. Is a question: is it consistently the same organizations? In some cases, yes. The other issue we have is turnover among ATAs and things like that at some agencies. There are a few new agencies that come on board that struggle with it. So we're looking at all the different kinds of training we can do to make sure that people are familiar with the process. But so it's a combination. Sometimes it's the same organizations, and sometimes it's new folks. If an individual is exited from the program but does not complete an exit interview because they voluntarily left the program, is there an answer we should choose so we don't get an error? The way that so the category of things that fall into errors is certainly a topic. The answers should reflect what the actual situation is with the client, not necessarily to get a better score in data quality. So I think the answer, Matthew, is no. If the data is not collected, that will still flag as an issue in the current definition of the data quality. But again, which answers qualify under which category is something the community can define. And so there's an opportunity there potentially for for revision to that through the HMIS committee. But currently, there's not anything. There's not a better selection you can get so that it doesn't show up in error, but also reflects the same response to the same situation with the client. It kind of is what it is. Other questions or comments? Do people feel that there's enough time in the schedule? I think we're allowing 2 weeks typically for the process to execute. Is that sufficient, or does that need to be a longer time frame? Uh, uh, so there is some sentiment for going out a survey for it. Abby says that the timeframes would be okay if they knew ahead of time. So point taken, and we will publish the schedule for the rest of the year as to when we'll be doing data quality, so you can fit that into your own schedules. In terms of the instructions, are there other clarifications or things like that that we need to make it to make those easier to follow, or are there particular areas for corrections that that need to be made clear, would make the process easier, if not simpler, for everyone? Juanita says there was a question in the intent to renew if it was submitted but not regarding the timeliness quality. Should it be what gets monitored gets done? So we as the HMIS lead don't decide what goes in the intent to renew. I believe this year they were looking for participation in the data quality process, not any specific results. So that's my understanding of what was measured in the ITR. I don't know that I understand your question in full, Juanita. I don't know if that answered it or not. Okay, thanks everyone for your feedback on that. If there's other things that you want to add in the questions thing, great, please do. And otherwise, we will put together a survey on other input and feedback that everyone might have, and see if we can incorporate that into the process. And thanks again to everyone for participating. The next topic is the coordinated entry assessment update. We've been working with the coordinated entry group and several other groups to revise both the process and the assessment being used by coordinated entry. So the new coordinated entry assessments will go into effect on April 1st, which is next Monday. CE team will be hosting a webinar training for all current housing resource specialists, which is the new title for the skilled assessors, also on April 1st. If you have any questions regarding that training, please reach out to the coordinated entry mailbox at chicagococ.org. One of the changes is the removal of the isolated contact information questions currently in red on the CE assessment. Going forward, only the contact information sub-assessment will remain, and that contact information sub-assessment is shared across all projects and agencies. So please be sure that the contact information sub-assessment is updated prior to April 1st if you have data in those for any of your clients. And if there are questions, there's a help desk article on the client contact information sub-assessment. The goal of the client information sub-assessment, the client contact information sub-assessment, I'm sorry, is to make sure that client contact information is getting shared across everyone, and there's a place for the data both in the client profile and in the sub-assessment, so we make that much more readily available. One of the issues the coordinated entry is trying to clean up is as the referrals get made and things like that, to make sure that the agency receiving the referral and the project receiving the referral have the ability to contact the client. So that's a major change in process, a major change in visibility of the data. And the rest of their assessment goes into effect in addition to that on April 1st. Any questions regarding that? Okay. The next topic is the All Inside initiative. The White House, the U.S. Interagency Commission on Housing, and 19 federal agencies are partnering with 6 selected state and local governments for up to 2 years to strengthen and accelerate efforts to help people move off the streets and into homes. Chicago was selected among 6 other COCs to participate in 5 areas that are part of the MOU that we submitted, including support to address technical issues that relate to allowing the system to provide added transparency for HMIS partners working across the same populations. In the parlance that we all understand, that basically means looking at visibility issues in the HMIS. So the data can be more easily shared across agencies and across projects and across functions, so that a more complete picture of the client's history and situation can be understood. So a subgroup from the HMIS committee has been meeting with other COCs who use the same HMIS we do, WellSky Community Services, um, and have undertaken a similar kind of thing to change their visibility and make other improvements to their systems to better understand the goals, the approaches, the challenges, the results, and the lessons learned in those COCs to inform our COC's requirements. So those meetings have taken place and data has been compiled. The last couple of HMIS committee meetings have gone a little long and have not gotten into detail on what the results of those meetings are and things like that. So that work is still in process. And we'll provide updates as they are available. Again, the HMIS committee is in the decision-making mode on this and reviewing things. There's been some discussion about how to gather other community input and things like that as they go forward. So again, we'll provide updates, just sort of a heads up that visibility of data in the system is certainly on the table, and changes to that visibility are on the table, but no decisions have been made yet. If you have any questions on that, we can talk about them now. Okay. Last meeting, we introduced EVA, which is a HUD data accuracy and completeness evaluation tool. That tool can help assess the accuracy and completeness of the data collected in your projects with an HMIS. It is up to date with the most recent data standards, so errors or warnings identified are consistent with the current HUD expectations. During that meeting, we did a demo of it. We provided links and created a couple of help desk articles, one on generating and uploading the reports, and the other is just a recording of the demo from the last ATA meeting on how to use it. There seemed to be quite a bit of interest and at least bordering on excitement about having a tool like that. And we said we'd be putting together some other webinars and things like that. Given the reporting stuff that we need to get done, we don't have the bandwidth to do that yet, but we will be hosting a webinar in the coming weeks as we wind down the HIC and the PIT to walk everybody through that and make that yet another tool that we can use to improve the data quality in the system. And part of that webinar will be to include how to do the corrections in any of the warnings or errors that come up. It's a fairly comprehensive tool, and it's been extremely useful to us in doing the LSA and some other things. So it may also be a tool that we can incorporate into the regular data quality process on a quarterly basis to help identify corrections that need to be made for that reporting as well. Any questions on EVA? Agency participation agreements. Thank you for assisting and participating in getting the agency participation agreements executed for each of the agencies. The COC requires the agency participation agreement be signed every year by each agency using the HMIS. We shared a process for that in January that went into February. Most agencies have signed the APA. We have a few outstanding ones that we're following up with, and we'll continue to do that follow-up. But thank you to everyone for helping identify the right people to send it to and helping get that process through your agency. We really appreciate it. This is the best we've done from a participation rate in quite a while in the APA. So thank you again for helping out on that. The next topic is the local valuation instrument, known by the acronym of LEI. So the COC performs the local valuation instrument on an annual basis, and that's going to be starting soon. So it's kind of a heads up on that process starting. The announcements will be coming from that group. They'll list out their schedules, details, webinars, and all that kind of stuff. So I'll leave that to them. But again, just a heads up that that's happening, particularly if you're new to the ATA role or you're a new agency that will need to participate in this. The LEI metrics and reports from a reporting perspective are in two categories. One set of questions and metrics is based on the annual performance report, the standard HUD annual performance report. And the second group is based on some custom reporting that we've done within the COC for things that aren't easily captured in an APR. The expectation is that the APR-based reports will be run by the agency for its participating projects, and those will be reviewed, and any data corrections needed to affect what the outcome of those questions is to get a better score in the LEI and things like that will be identified and executed by that agency by running the APR and the instructions provided on what it's measuring. The custom reports are going to be generated and distributed from the HMIS group multiple times through the LEI process. We've reviewed the instructions and made some updates to those to hopefully make things a little bit clearer on what the contents of the different reports are and how to interpret the results and how to correct any of the errors and the places to look to correct the errors. And again, if there are suggestions that you folks have as you receive them for improving those instructions or whatever, please let us know that so we can make it as clear as possible. Any questions on the LEI process? Well, this went much quicker than I thought. I anticipated a lot more questions and comments. Any other questions about any of the content or things we can clarify? Abby has a question about how long does it take to register. We paid our COC dues and should have HMIS training credits. We're working that through all the internal processes that compile that stuff. So it shouldn't take as long as it is taking, and we'll resolve that for you, Abby. I know that's an open issue. So Lauren has a question. Do you know what happened to the VA data issues report? I'm not familiar with that report. Alex, I don't know if you know what that one is, but if you could open a ticket with the help desk, and if you have a copy of the report to send us, we can look into what that is. The fact that it's called the VA data issues report, I want to make sure that we're looking in the right system for it. Juanita has a question. Do you know if we'll be getting the data as of the first when LEI is scheduled to open? Yes, we're generating some sample reports as we speak. So yes, the data should be available on the first. Gladys, I had an issue when running the reports. It told me my error count but did not show the errors. Can you be more specific about which report you were running, Gladys? The recent DQ report. So Gladys, if you could open a help desk ticket, we can circle back with you and go through specific issues with the reports. Denise says, can we start using the usual LEI reports to start cleaning up data that will affect LEI metrics? If you mean the old business objects reports that were used several years ago for LEI, the reporting definitions have changed, and there were some issues in putting that data together within business objects. So though, if you're talking about, Denise, the business objects LEI reports, those are no longer in use. More so the, yes, Denise, if you're talking about the APR report, you can start anytime in cleaning up the data. I believe the difference would be that you run the APR on an annual basis, like from January 1st to December 31st, and not on the anniversary of the project as is usual. So as long as you keep that in mind, then you can run the APR anytime and start cleaning up the data at any time. Claudia has a question. Is this information only relevant to PSH projects? I'm not sure which information you're referring to specifically. Lauren is saying that it's the SSVF data quality. If WellSky has taken that report, because Suburban Cook runs community services also, if it's part of the HMIS and it's no longer available because HUD has changed the definition or whatever. And Alex, if you know what this is, it may be that there's like the hashed export, hash CSV export may be used by SSVF going forward for the VA repository. I don't recall that specifically, but Alex, if you know what the SSVF data quality replacement is, if you could weigh in, that'd be great.
So I'm not 100% sure exactly the reason why the SSVF data quality report was removed, but we can look further into it, and we can also look into see if the hashed export for this project can be utilized elsewhere.
Yep, and we'll open a case with WellSky to see what the guidance is on that. HDX, what does the acronym stand for, and how to access? I don't, I believe it's the HUD or HMIS data exchange. And there are actually two different sites, HDX 1.0 and HDX 2.0. I don't recall if agencies need access to that site or not. I believe your uploads are done to Sage with the APR. Other questions? Okay. We'll stay on the conference for a couple minutes to see if there's any other questions. If not, this is the end of the content for it. So thank you, everyone, and give you a few minutes of your day back and enjoy the rest of your day, even though the weather is awful. I hope you have a good day. Okay, we're going to end the webinar now. Thank you again to everyone, and we'll see you in a couple months.